is the highest damage unit in All-Star Tower Defense? Many of my subscribers keep asking me this question, so in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys the official DPS list that I made. I'll also have the spreadsheet linked down below. All right, I have it almost completely updated with all the buffs, and I'll continue to update it as well, so check that out down below. And we're going to be going through, guys, the best DPS units in the game so you guys can know what to summon. But to start off this video, let's go hop into training mode, and I'll show you guys the first of the rankings. All right, so we're going to start off with number 20 on my list, and you're going to notice that a lot of your favorite units haven't even made the list. All right, here we go, guys. So starting off at number 20, we have our boy Infernal Enigma. Now, this is a banner 6-star that not a lot of people like use or know about, but what puts him high on this list is two things. First up, you're going to notice that he does actually have Black Flames on his, not Black Flames, Rupture on his last ability, and also he does hit airs, so that's pretty good. But one other thing you're going to notice is you actually can place 8 of him, which is pretty insane. Now, I don't think you would ever in normal circumstances place 8 because look at his cost, guys, 6.5 million, but technically speaking, he does have some pretty insane DPS. All right, so after Kagurabachi, we have a unit that you actually might, oh, actually, I'll show you his max buff stats as well. So let me get a Holy Selection on him, and I'll show you his effects, why not, too, while we're at it. So that's what he's looking like. Pretty freaking cool, not gonna lie. So 21 million Black Flames. You guys can kind of tell while he's there. All right, so next up we have Piccolo, who you can also place, not Piccolo, what the frick am I saying? Cell, who you can also place 8 of. All right, look at those stats, guys. So that's without the buff. So you can kind of see why he's pretty high on this list. While he doesn't have any effects, he does have a really, really nice DPS. So, and he's also, the nice thing about him is you can actually afford to max out all 8 of him. Maybe it is going to be pretty expensive, but it's definitely technically possible. But I can't really recommend him, though. He's a little bit expensive to max all of them out. All right, next up we have the second best Rupture unit in the game. All right, we have Infernal Enigma versus Ryuga. Now, Ryuga is single placement, but you're going to see she has double the damage and less SPA, and she's full AOE. So, because she's an effect unit, it's going to be pretty nice, and they both do hit airs, but obviously, guys, I would pretty much pick her every time. She does cost as much as 2 of him, though, so that is a thing, but even if you place 2 of him down, she's still doing more straight-up DPS, so she's pretty cracked. All right, so after her, it's actually really close. What people don't know is Boros just doesn't have that good DPS. Look at this, guys. All right, we actually have Boros at number, I have him at number 18 on my list. All right, it says number 19, but that's just because number 1 is the name column. So yeah, I have him at number 19 on this list. He surprisingly doesn't have that great of DPS. So, but he is full AOE, which is pretty nice. But his 16 SPA kind of does him dirty. But so you can kind of tell. I'll compare the two real quick for you guys. You can kind of tell what's up. So you're gonna see 326 for 12. And then 260 for 16, and this is gonna almost double, guys. All right, does he have a buff on him? No, this is gonna almost double with Rage. So you're gonna see kind of why. And also he's full AOE too, and they both hit airs. The thing is, Broly is slightly more expensive, but I would pretty much always rather bring Broly than Boros, even with the cost difference, because full AOE is so much nicer than even this big AOE. All right, next up, we have to go switch off the next set of units. Now, normally in this spot, I would put Hudron the Mystic, but we're not going to count him because in order to actually have him on this list, you need to factor in his special ability damage. And I know a lot of people don't like when I do that, so we'll talk about units with special abilities at the end of the video. All right, so next up on the DPS list, we have our boy Sid. Now, Sid is one of the units I actually like. The reason being is you can actually afford to max out Sid, and his DPS is pretty insane. So at max level, he's doing like a frick ton of DPS. You can see it's like 706 million DPS. It's pretty freaking insane, guys. So definitely a highly recommended unit to bring. Plus he also has a nuke, which isn't factored into his DPS calculation because we're not factoring in abilities. So he's pretty sweet. Now the one thing I must say is they did add armored units. So unfortunately armored units aren't affected by his bleed. And also the other nice, so that kind of sucks. But that applies to every single elemental unit. And the other thing that's nice about him is he's super OP for raid mode because he's doing an insane amount of damage and he has dark element. So if you combo him with Astd, he's doing triple damage. So pretty sweet. Here's his stats, guys. 11 million. And then of course you can throw on Almighty. And of course, this is with also leader buff. So 44 million. So that's like 10 million bleed DPS, which is freaking busted, guys. Highly recommended unit. All right, next up we have 2 Black Flames units. Now, Crow does have, I think, slightly more technically, but he's also more practical because you're gonna see he only costs like 11 million to max, and he has a higher damage. But you're gonna see Yami actually does have some pretty decent stats as well for Black Flames, about 1/3 as much, but a faster SPA. But the thing that actually makes Yami pretty good is you can place 8 of them, which is fairly useful. But unfortunately, that's gonna be very impractical because each Yami costs 6.6 million to max. So I don't think anybody's gonna be able to actually max all those out. So for that reason, I definitely recommend Crow. Even though his AOE is kind of mid, you definitely want to give him Orb and a range buff from Giordano. But other than that, pretty dang good. Yeah, his range just leaves a little bit to be desired. So actually, after that, we have Guts, our next, actually the highest DPS unit. That is going to be Rupture. Now, you're going to notice he's actually not that high up on this list. Like, take a look. Like, Guts is actually lower than our boy Choso. And Guts is actually pretty low on this list at number 12. Because remember, number 1 is the name column. So he's actually pretty low on this list, which is really surprising. So I guess we'll compare him with Choso, and we'll kind of figure out why. So look at this, guys. The reason Choso is so... Oh, wait, one second. Let me fix Choso. I think I have him wrong on this. Oh, he's level 1. That's what I was going to say. I was like, something's messed up there. The reason being is Rupture is not as good as Bleed. Bleed hits more times over the period than Rupture does. So that's kind of what makes Choso so good. And they have roughly the same damage. Because remember, max level, you have to multiply it by 2.124 times. So let's see here. 0.59 times 2.124. So Choso actually is doing 11.8 million compared to Guts is 12 million, but he does have a higher SPA, but that doesn't really matter that much because Bleed is just that much better. All right, let's go check out the next grouping. All right, so next up on this list, we have our boy Gojo. Now, Gojo is technically the highest DPS unit in the game, but the thing about him is that factors in his ability, so not factoring in his ability, he's not the highest. However, to get to this spot, it's going to be almost impossible. So like, he is very high on this list, but he should be lower because there's ain't no way you're going to be able to max out all of them because they each cost 10 million to place. So that's going to cost you 80 million to max out all your Gojos. So that's just not happening. It's impractical, but on a technical basis, not factoring costs, he is this high, but he would be even higher if you could count his ability nuke because it's reusable and just makes his DPS insane. I have it calculated right here, guys. His max level DPS is 24 million, factoring in his 8.5 billion nuke. So he's pretty OP, but again, we're not factoring in abilities to this ranking, so that kind of makes him a little bit worse than he actually is. So take that into account. All right, next up we have our boy Flaming Tiger. Now, Flaming Tiger is one of the better burn units in the game. All right, also one nice thing about him is look at this. He's super affordable. Like, he does some really, really good burn damage for his price, and then you can max him out. Now, the one thing I don't like about him is this 18 SPA, which kind of matches awkwardly with burn that's over 12 seconds. Also, his AoE circle leaves a little bit to be desired, but considering he's a 6-star and he's this high up on the list, that's pretty dang cracked. So, not bad at all. And I guess we'll compare him with our next guy, but first up we have Beast Gohan. Now, Beast Gohan's another rage unit. The one problem with him though is, again, he's pretty expensive to max them all out. 2.4 million times 8. Yeah, you're getting up there to close to 20 million. So but he's doing so much more damage than Boros. And honestly, his AoE might even be better than Boros. And factoring in this guy's range buff, I think he low-key might have a better, yeah, probably has a better AoE than Boros does. So he's also way higher than Boros. You're gonna notice that Boros' DPS is 3 million and Gohan's DPS is 4.7 million. So he's doing 50% more DPS than Boros, and he's and he's probably cheaper or really close to the same price. All right, next up we have Obito. Now, Obito is the best Black Flames unit that can hit ground units. So you're gonna see his stats are pretty insane, but even without the max upgrade, look at this guy's 19 million and 5.4 SPA. That's what really makes him beastly. That's a super fast SPA. Compare this to Rengoku. All right, you can kind of see the difference there. All right, let's go get the. Oh, I guess this guy's also buffed too. So let me wait for the buff to refresh, and then we can actually see the real difference, which isn't even going to be that high. So let me go 3x real quick, and we'll get this buff to go away. All right, there we go. So 76 versus 52. So he's doing even more damage per hit, and he's Black Flames, and he has a faster SPA. And he does cost about 4 million more though than Rengoku, but overall Obito's a pretty dang cracked unit. And then we can compare that with our other status effect unit, the best bleed unit in the game. He also hits airs. So you're going to kind of see you have to triple this damage. So let's go wait again for Giordano to refresh. Oh, there we go. Perfect. So 59 versus 52. So basically, and he does cost about the same as Obito. So you can kind of choose which one you like better. They have the same range too. And like Obito actually does have a better AoE, but Obito doesn't hit airs. So you kind of have to compare, see which one you like. But they're all pretty great units. Now their DPSs are all up there. Very, very similar DPSs. 4 million to 5 million. But Zoro and Obito's DPSs, you're going to notice, are pretty much the exact same. So very, very similar. But the problem if you want to bring Zoro is then you can't bring Sid. And I don't know, man. I personally would probably bring Sid over Zoro. You are losing about 50% of the, roughly a little bit less than 50% of the DPS. But I think it's worth it for the fact that you gain the nuke, which I think will more than make up for it. Plus, he's also a money buff unit, so that's pretty nice as well. So let's go over to the next set of units. All right, now technically Lancer should be up here, but I'm not going to count him because he is an ability unit. So he has a very high DPS, but that only counts with his ability. So we'll have to take him off this list. All right, here we go. So next up, we actually have Kurama. So I checked the wiki, and apparently Kurama's like cracked. So let's go spawn the beast, and we're going to max him out. So let's see what his actual stats are. Wow, 35.9 million with no leader buff, guys. All right, no leader buff. So the only problem with him is his range is kind of... his range is kind of low. But other than that, can you control the beast spawner? Here, let me see if you can control the beast spawner. You can. What? You can control the beast spawner? What does it even do? That is so random. That is the weirdest glitch. Anyways, so this guy does have some pretty insane DPS. So I'll place down Giordano so we can see what his buff DPS is. So with the buff, his DPS is wow, 143 million for 6, which is pretty freaking high. So that's the one nice thing about Kurama. The problem is he does kind of take up 2 slots, and he is kind of expensive as well. And let's just say those 2 units aren't really the best thing since sliced bread. But that is, if you're willing to deal with that, then he's not that bad overall. So there you go, guys. Kurama high up on the list. All right, next up we have our boy Yamamoto. Now Yamamoto is also pretty decent, but it depends on which of his abilities you're using. So like you can use his normal, you can use his west. All right, maybe you want to use his east. All right, I think his east is the one with the highest DPS, because look at that, guys. 23.7 for 3.5 SPA is literally freaking mental. Is that the stats I have him at? No, I have him at a different set. I have him at his other one. But like, look at this, guys. That is mental stats. And then north is the one I think I usually use. No, it's a different one. I forget which one it is, but the full AoE one is the one I was counting. But this one's also pretty good, guys. 21.4 for 15. Pretty dang good. So I honestly, though, I might just go with this one. This one is super cracked. 23 point... But this one doesn't hit airs. But besides the fact that it doesn't hit airs, it's pretty cracked. Like a 3.5 SPA is crazy. 95 million with 3 SPA. Like that's just straight up better than Kurama. And it also has burn. Oh, does he not have burn on this upgrade? Oh, he doesn't have burn. What? I guess that makes sense. So this is the one upgrade of Old Will that doesn't have burn. Interesting. I didn't realize he loses burn on this upgrade, but he does. So I guess that makes sense why it's so high. Interesting. Well, good to know, guys. But let's just say Old Will's a pretty dang good unit. So even with that upgrade, he's probably up on the list. So he's cracked. Next up, we have Ichigo. But the problem with Ichigo is he only hits air units. But other than that, he's the #1 DPS in the game, thanks to his awakening ability that makes him Black Flames. So his stats are pretty freaking mental. So let's go get this popping off. And yeah, let's just say his DPS is freaking insane. All right, his DPS is actually 8 million. Now, there is another unit that's on here, Kagurabachi, but I'm not 100% sure of his stats. And I also think he's a 6-star. So, but I'm not 100% sure of his stats yet. So, if you guys have Kagurabachi, let me know. But you're going to see Ichigo's 8 million compared to Yamamoto's 6.4 million. So, Ichigo's basically in the league of himself right now. However, there are some units that do even more damage than Ichigo. So, I'm going to talk about those real quick. Alright guys, so here are the units that do technically infinite damage. So I'll go through them in order. So first up, we have our boy, Luffy. So now Luffy does 25% damage with his nuke, which is pretty sweet, so not bad at all. Also, we have Diavolo, who also does 25%, but it does it in a weird way. So he basically makes the enemies have 75% HP. So if you stack Diavolo and Luffy together, you could get the enemies down to about 50% HP, which is pretty cool. But you could just use our boy God Zamasu, God Black Fusion, who cuts the enemy's HP in half. So you can do that, and then you can use Luffy's nuke. Now, Luffy's nuke is a one-time thing, which kind of sucks. And then the enemies now have 25% HP. Or you can use, I guess technically speaking, the highest damage unit of the game. He does 60% damage to all units in his range, which is pretty freaking busted. And if you combine him with Luffy, that's 85% damage. So the enemies will only have 15% of their health yet left. But again, Luffy is a one-time ability, so that is pretty ridiculous. So there you go, guys. Those are the high. But the one thing about all these things, guys, is this guy's damage does not count towards your damage task. The only percentage unit that does count towards your damage is Luffy. So the only way for you guys that I know of at the moment to get past this 568 trillion, though I think it's probably just a cap, is to use Luffy, because with Luffy you can get quadrillions of damage. All right, there's lots of videos on YouTube about it, and I'll make a video about it hopefully soon. So I'll catch you guys in the next one, and let me know which is your favorite highest damage unit.